Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. I hope you can hear me nicely. So I just thought I would correct some of the bits, and I think this is more of what I wanted to do in that original one that seemed to just waffle on a little bit. I do apologise. First of all, I need to correct that the um, Canaan, it was the Promised Land. I kept referring to it as the Chosen Land, isn't it? It's the Promised Land, and also it's Isaac and Ishmael. I kept saying Isaac, isn't it? It's Ishmael. Ishmael is the one that is through to Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Isaac is the one that's to the prophets up to Jesus. So here it talks about, in the Bible, the Promised Land, also known as Canaan or Israel, is the territory God promised to Abraham and his descendants as their inheritance. This promise is a central concept in the Jewish faith and a key element in Zionism. The land is described as flowing with milk and honey, sleeping it's fertile and abundant. And here it mentions some of the places. I think I went to this one next. And this is where it explains about the Ishmael and Isaac part and how, I suppose, this is the key problem. If God promised it to Abraham and his children and his I don't know if it's to his people or just to Abraham and his heritage, because he had two children, one of them of Sarah, which there's that's Isaac, isn't it? Which is no, Ishmael, sorry, which is the one where Prophet Muhammad, the Arabs come from, and the other side is Ishmael, where the Jews come from, and therefore, does that mean they both have to share it because they're both can trace their lineage back to Abraham's children, and the promise is equal to both of them? I don't know. Anyway, but it mentions it here somewhere. Yeah, this is where God is claimed to have spoken to the promise to Abraham in several verses of Genesis, the first book of the Torah. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you." The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring or seed, I will give this land." See, I wonder what that word actually translates to, the offspring or seed. Later, in what is called the Covenant of Pieces, a verse is said to describe what is known as the borders of the land. On the day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham and said, "To your descendants I give this land, from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, Kiznites," and etc. And it goes on. I mean, I don't know, were these, like Egypt and Euphrates, were these names that were around in the time that this was written, and even in the time of the promise to Abraham? How was it spoken to him? Did he know of these places, and the how would God explain to him that these are the places that are given to you when you don't even know the names of them? And here it mentions these allegedly divine promises were given prior to the birth of Abraham's sons. Abraham's family tree includes both the Ishmaelite tribes, the claimed ancestry of the Arabs and of the Islamic prophet Muhammad, through Abraham's first son Ishmael, and the Israelite tribes, the claimed ancestry of the Jews and Samarites, through Abraham's second son Isaac. So that was to clear up that bit and how they both may have claim to the same promise. Assuming that promise, like I said, was that promise for infinite, infinitum. Is that right? Sorry, my Latin's not great. Or, like forever, or was that just to those children and their children, and that was it? Because I don't get why God would promise a bit of land. It depends how, maybe it was meant as, I don't know, if it was just that little bit of land, or there was just as a means to creating an understanding and then moving on from that and not keeping on to that. I don't know. And then it says, God later confirms the promise to Abraham's son Isaac and then to his son Jacob, in terms of the land of which you are lying. Jacob is later renamed Israel, and his descendants are the children of the Israel, or the 12 tribes of Israel. Yeah, and there's where it's got interpretations. The concept of the promised land is central as belief for the Jewish people and a key tenet of Zionism, the Jewish national movement which established the state of Israel. Mainstream Jewish tradition regards the promise made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, notice Ishmael's missed out there, as applying to anyone a member of the Jewish people, including proselytes, and in the turn their descendants, and is signified through the B'rah Milah, the rite of circumcision. But I'm not sure whether they're ascribing that themselves or whether that's actually there, because in the words it's not actually very definitive of who the promise is to, other than where's it gone? Sorry, to your offspring or seed is the actual translation. Assuming that's an accurate translation. Christians, Paul changed it. The promises were keen to Abraham and to his seed. Scriptures does not say the seed, does not say and seeds, meaning many people, but and to your seed, meaning one person who is Christ. And so they changed theirs, and I don't know if it's got Muslim interpretation. The first century Roman Jewish historian Flavius Joseph postulated that Ishmael was the founder of the Arab race, and according to Muslim tradition, Islam's founding prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a Hanif, the true monotheistic believer of the religion of Abraham. His tribe, the Quraysh, traces ancestry to Ishmael. Some Palestinians claim partial descent from the Israelites and Maccabees, as well as from other people who've lived in the region. So you see, on that basis, that's where there could be the problem of, well, the promise was to his seed, which is obviously Abraham passed. It was Isaac and Ishmael, and of their seed. I mean, the thing is, like, if it's seed, I mean, even though it may only say seed instead of seeds, obviously in language that doesn't necessarily mean it's not all of the seeds of that person, because you can use it in that way. So if that does mean that all the lineage of Abraham, i.e. Isaac and Ishmael, then, and they both can be traced to Arabs and Jews, and obviously Christians are connected to Jews as well, because obviously Christ was Jewish, and he was the Messiah that they'd been waiting for, although not all Jews believe that. So therefore, all those Abrahamic religions have a standing in the bit of land that God's given to them, the promised land. And therefore, if you believe the scripture, and you believe that it was given to both the seeds, i.e. Ishmael and Isaac, and their descendants and their seeds, then that means that both Jews and Muslims, and I would say Christians, because they form part of, those are the ones that believed Jesus to be the Messiah that was awaited for Jews. Therefore, all of them should be living there in harmony, and it is neither of theirs to take ownership, but it should be a three-state solution for all three of the peoples, because they are the seeds of Abraham. They are the ones that the promise was made to, assuming that you can trace all that down to that, and assuming those lineages did carry on to modern-day Jews, modern-day Arabs or Muslims, to Prophet Muhammad, etc., etc. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, but of course, the problem is because Jews don't believe in Christ, Christians, and the Christians don't believe in Muslims, Prophet Muhammad, and so they get to squabble about this and say, well, they're not really those things, and so that doesn't apply, and that's the way they can get rid of it. But the problem is the fact is, if you can trace Arabs and Jews to Abraham, because Sarah, the wife, was actually, I believe, even, what is the lineage of Abraham? Wasn't he Abraham, Prophet Abraham, really? Wasn't he from Egypt, or not Egypt, but Which prophet was it that was actually black? Was it him or was it Noah? Yes, this is what I was trying to look for. Because I thought I knew I remembered something about Prophet Abraham. It says Abraham's ancestors came out of Africa. The biblical writers recognize that the people among them with red skin were of an ancestral line of extreme antiquity. This is why the first man's name, Adam, is related to the word for blood and the colour red, Dam, Odom, or Edom. I didn't know that. Abraham, a descendant of Noah, through his son Shem, lived with his family in the city of Ur in Chaldea, today's Iraq. Having left Ur, his father, Terah, his wife Sarah, and his nephew Lot, Abraham stayed for a time in Haran, where Terah died. I mean, so is it possible that all of these religions, whether they're Jewish or Muslim or Christian or whatever, they're actually all the same people and they're all arguing with each other? Because Abraham, the father of all religions, he was born in Iraq, or the area that is now known as Iraq. And therefore, you know, they all of these, they're all next to each other. They're all fighting each other. They all may be related to each other in that form of all being descendants of Prophet Abraham. I don't know. What was the ethnicity? According to Nissan Amlislang, the book of Genesis portrays Abraham as having an Amorite origin, arguing that the patriarch's province from the region of Haran, as described in Genesis 11:31, associates him with the territory of the Ammonite homeland. So it says Abraham is presented as having come originally from the city of Ur and Chaldea. He left southern Mesopotamia with his family, brother, and the rest of his family, settled first in Haran, the town which lay a tributary to the Euphrates, the north of today's Syria. You see, the thing is, like, we're seeing things from now where these landscapes are now, you'd say that's a Muslim country or Islamic country or whatever. But obviously, that's over thousands of years. So that's the problem, isn't it? That it's all the same, all from the same area. They're all. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say is they all could be the Arabs and the Jews could all be the same from the same people. I mean, maybe like historically, we're all related to each other, no? Because I believe like scientists believe that we're either there's two camps, isn't it? One is we're all from Africa and we descended from there and spread out, and the other is that we descended from Mesopotamia, that kind of area, Iraq area. I don't know whether there was more. Was there always, was there one tribe or there was many tribes, and that accounts for the differences of our appearance and things, or was that just because of generations of living in different environments that change those things, or they're just random? But yeah, it's interesting to think that Prophet Abraham comes from that Middle Eastern area. Obviously, it wasn't Middle Eastern back then, but what I mean is that they're all from the same area. Are they all the same people, and thus they're fighting each other for something that they all own? And maybe, therefore, if we all come from that area, maybe God's promise isn't just to those people, but to all humanity, because we all come from there. Which to me would sound a better reading of it, because I don't understand why God would create a planet and humanity for everyone and then only give it to a certain amount of people. What's this one? Our Muslim descendants of Abraham. Sarah, however, later has a son Isaac with her husband. Jews, Christians, and Muslims all consider themselves Abrahamic spiritual descendants. Abraham was a prophet and a messenger of God according to Islam, and ancestor to the Ismailite Arabs and Israelites. All of humans descendants of Noah. We know that all humans came from based on the Bible, from the original man and woman Adam and Eve, and that all living human beings are descendants of Noah and his family. Paul declared that God made everyone made of one every nation of men to dwell on the face of the earth. So this is Terah, the nationality of Abraham's father, Iraq, Turkey. That's a different person. What is Canaan called today? Canaan, the ancient name for the region of the southern Levant, is today primarily known as Israel and parts of Palestine. The area also includes portions of modern-day Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria. So that was a bit, I think I said Egypt wrongly. But yeah, so that whole area is the area, and of course, all the people from it are the same people in the sense that they're all Arabs, and before they had titles, they all were the same people, no? Is that what I'm learning now? Are we all descendants of Abraham? No, not, this is AI. No, not in a literal biological sense. The idea that all people are descendants of Abraham is a concept rooted in a religious and spiritual tradition, not a scientific or geological claim. Well, Abraham's the father of... Yeah, so that was what I really wanted to go through. Just wanted to add, correct the bits in the last one and a bit more factual stuff. So to me now, that clearly, to me, in my mind, in the system that we live within, of religion and all that kind of stuff, it seems to me that if Prophet Abraham came from the area where Arabs are, and his was given the promise to Ishmael and Isaac, who Muslims or Arabs and Jews, Israelites, can trace both their lineage to. They both lived in the same area, and they both came from that area, and therefore, to me, it seems that the claim that the promise is to all of them, and therefore they all have a duty to acknowledge that promise and work together. They shouldn't be fighting for it either. Like when you look at all this history stuff, it all seems like they're very connected with each other. Correct me if I'm wrong of that, but that's what I'm learning here when I'm doing this basic research, unless I'm reading it wrong. What do you think? But it seems like they're all connected, and they both have the claim, because they almost certainly come from the same areas, and they should be living there in harmony together because of that promise. Because otherwise, what's the point of God giving you a promise of a promised land of milk and honey when both sides are covering it with blood? Both sides are, killing the people that have been given this promise and demolishing all the buildings in the area and making life. I mean, if it's meant to be a promised land, living there is not like a harmonious place. So that's, if you believe in God and you honor him, how will you honor him by making this place, a war zone all the time, destroying it, and so much blood flowing in his name for a promise of a land of milk and honey? Assuming that was what the promise was about. I mean, my wondering with it when has the quote of milk and honey, is whether this was a spiritual promise was being given, and maybe he was talking more about a heaven rather than the physical land. But of course, men always see things in physical terms, always see things in possessive terms of like we're being given this, so we must take this, and not because that's unfortunately the nature of men or humanity, is that they want to possess things, and that's why we've come to this place where, the system that I'm always going on about, where we've cornered up bits of land and given it names, and you have to have a piece of paper so you can stay in this one and that one. You have to be patriotic, this and that, rather than seeing us as humanity. And because our idea of seeing things that way, and maybe not the way maybe Abraham or Isaac or Ishmael saw it, if they were close to God and religious, but the descendants, generations, thousands of years down, because they've been polluted by this idea of possession and greed, but have lost the essence of what it maybe meant. Wasn't to the exclusive nature of that, but for all humanity, as the whole, God created us all in His image, and we're all equal. And He gave us everything. He gave us the breathing. He gave us existence. He gave us land. If God exists and religion exists, and the words that are written actually can be ascribed back to Him. But if there is a Creator, He gave us everything, and therefore we should see it in that way. And maybe, unfortunately, the way we're seeing it is the poison, in the way that we're fighting, like Muslims and Arabs, etc., fighting for this bit of land and not really keying into the essence of God's love that He was trying to get across, and are perverting that by the way that they're treating that promise. I don't know what your views are. Take care, take it easy. God bless and peace.